Just gonna do a real quick video of the coop I built. Hoop coop made out of cattle panels. Anyway, try to keep it short. Came out pretty good, so I figured I'd share it. I seen a few other videos, kind of based it on a picture I seen, and then designed it. And then I looked at a few other videos. I thought mine was a little bit different. I kind of like the way I did a few things different. So anyway, I'll show you that, and then at the end also costs. Definitely not cheap to build, especially with wood the way it is today, but there's a few options, mainly if you want the floor. Obviously it adds a lot of costs, but other than that, I'll show you what I did. So here's the coop. Has a complete floor. It's put on blocks. The floor is 3/4 inch plywood. Actually 23/32 I think is what they call it, but anyway, all the walls are cattle panel. They're 16 feet long by 50 inches tall, so I used 4 of those. It's just got a tarp across the about 3/4 of it, and then chicken wire on the entire thing, even underneath the tarp. Keep animals out. I've wired it down and keep it in place. This is all cage wire. The door, I just built the door. Hinges, of course. It's got a couple latches. I put 2, top and bottom. A little door pull. I did throw some braces in the corners, just to help square it up and keep it square. Put a brace in the middle. This is all 2x4. Everything's PT, pressure treated, so it lasts a long time. But this is, like I say, the cage wire is pretty stout stuff. That's why I use that wire instead of like a chicken wire. Also use the same wire here. There is a seam, just a small piece is a seam. Other than that, that's all one piece. So that turned out pretty good. Like I say, it's pretty stout stuff. The door's 24 inches wide. I cut my opening 25 inches, so I got about a 1/2 inch reveal on each side. And it's pretty close top and bottom. Real close top and bottom. But anyway, it works really nice. Easy. We painted the floor in the front just for aesthetics and the ramp. And also maybe protect the plywood a little bit. We're gonna paint the back also. It's hard to see right now. The back, not the inside, but the outside, I'm also gonna paint. Same color. I'll show you that in a minute. So the overall dimensions are 8 feet wide by 16 feet long. So there's 4 complete pieces of plywood here. And that's really the reason I made it this length, is because plywood and the cattle panels, it works out really well. You only have 8 inches of overhang, which you could easily cut with bolt cutters if you didn't want that, but I might hang something on it or whatever in the future, so I left it for now, that overhang. But like I say, if you make it 8 feet by 16 feet long, it works out pretty well for material. We made a couple of swings. Haven't seen them on it yet, but they've only been in here a few days. Just tied those up with some string with some scrap. Don't know if they'll stay or not, depending if they use them. This is how I framed it. Framed it up. You could frame it any way you want, of course, but this is just the way I did it. That's also 3/4 inch plywood on each side here. The back just was kind of an afterthought. I was gonna make it wire, but went ahead and made it plywood as well. So it's 1/2 inch plywood. Didn't necessarily need to be 3/4. But anyway, these are just some old pieces of an old bed frame we had lying around. I screwed to the back and then hung with wire. They're actually pretty stable. They've been using them for the past few nights and it's worked really well. The egg box, I made that a while ago in the old coop. It's just a three nest egg box that I made, 2x4s and some plywood I had lying around. Anyway, it's been working good. I got a little perch there they can jump on and then get in the box. But anyway, that's how I frame the back up. Pretty simple. You know, the outsides aren't supported, but it's very short distance that isn't supported. The plywood's thick enough to hold the structure. So it worked out good. You know, you're building around a hoop, so there's a lot of radiuses. Got their food in here. Got their water on this side. But like I say, you can see the entire thing has chicken wire over it. And then here's the panels. Where there's a seam in the panels, these are the hog wires, or hog rings I should say. You gotta have hog ring pliers, well, it makes it a lot easier. And then these hog rings, I think these are 12.5 gauge hog rings. But I put them at every seam, you know, every couple feet. Yeah, there'll be another seam right here. So right here you can see the same hog rings. And they actually hold it. I mean, it's really stable. I seen some other that had supports all the way back. I don't think it's necessary personally, because I mean this holds the structure really well. This is pretty heavy gauge. This cattle panel is pretty heavy gauge stuff, so it holds itself pretty well. I went on the outside of my frame whenever I put the cattle panels on. I'll show you how I do that. So that's how I attach the cattle panels to the frame, the outside frame. The entire frame is 2x6s, even the floor joists in the middle underneath. I'll show you that real quick. So even the floor joists underneath, all these are 2x6s. So I got two 16-footers, one on each side, and then of course every 2 feet on 2-foot centers, so your plywood works out on joints, of course. Anyway, there's all 2x6s all the way back. So it's a pretty strong floor. I mean, you could use that for a shed or anything and it would work fine. But it's kind of easier to see on this side, got more room. Anyway, so every couple feet, these are 1 3/4 inch. I mean, 2 inch would work also. Fencing staples, these have barbs on them, so they're even harder to pull out. These are poultry staples. I think those are 3/4 inch poultry staples. You can see the plywood there, of course, now on the side, on top. But just put it on blocks. This side's shimmed a hair, but level it out. But you can see there, like I say, the floor on top of the frame. Probably see there's your joists, like I said, every 2 feet. The tarp, I actually use screws also, kind of put them at an angle where I can pull it tight. You could also just go with string and weave it underneath here up to each eyelet. Thought about doing that as well, but it was kind of windy the day I put it on, so I wanted to get it on quick where it didn't blow off. But I actually didn't attach it. I thought you could even weave this, but it's pretty tight. But you could even weave this around the cattle panels all the way across if you wanted to on the front. I just have it done on each side. It's staying pretty well so far. This is the back. I got just a slight overhang, maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 inches. I'm probably going to connect like this eyelet to the eyelet on the far side once I paint this, just to make sure it stays real snug. I do have a couple screws now, because this is where that inside framework kind of made that A shape there. So I had something hard to hit there, some meat to hit. I overlapped, so that's 2x6, of course, underneath there. I overlapped my plywood down a little bit. I left 2 inches. There's 2 inches is what I kind of did here all the way around. I marked it whenever I was putting these panels up, these cattle panels. From here to here is 2 inches. Hindsight now, I probably wish I would have went maybe 3. I wanted to leave as much as I could to give support, you know, on these panels when they were going up. Obviously you don't want to mount it up here where it's really wobbly. I wanted as much hanging down as I could. But anyway, the reason I wish I would have left about another inch of height is if I did that on each side, it would be obviously a couple inches taller overall. I'm 5'7", in my head I can walk in here, but if I'm wearing a hat, my hat's scrubbing the top. So it's basically exactly 5'7" to the center line of this coop. Like I say, 2 more inches would have been handy to walk in it myself, but it's not a big deal. I can just barely crouch and get in pretty good. Old workout step's never been used until now, so that worked out good. It'll get used. We had lying around, made the ramp. It's 2x6, and then some scrap pieces of plywood I just ripped down real quick, screwed those on. This is an automatic door. This is about $35 if I remember correctly. Purchase $35. It's off of photocell, and it works so far fairly well. I was a little bit hesitant because this is an eBay straight from China kind of door, but it works pretty well so far. We'll see if we have to swap it out with something else. I know they have some other options. It's just like a polymer, so this is definitely probably the weak link. You can see it, you know, it's kind of bent right there. But once it's down in the frame, it's not too bad. Definitely don't screw in the frame too tight because all this is polymer also, like a thin. You can kind of see how I'm flexing that. But once it's in there, I mean, it's pretty stable. I think if something new it could get in there, it probably would be able to, but they're not gonna know that's the weak link, so I don't think it's gonna be an issue. Already got some decoration on there, but anyway, so far so good. They've only been in there a few nights, but that wire is just wrapped around this panel. Also, anywhere I could, I put, you know, poultry staples. This is all the poultry staples. You know, that's how I connected all these wire. I think, like I say, those are 3/4. But this roll actually came 2 feet wide, I think by 15 feet. So I didn't have to cut it and match my door I made. That's 2 feet, 24 inches. So, like, just basic hinges. I think all these are zinc coated. Hopefully it'll last a little while, won't rust out. I didn't use any of the hardware that they sent when you buy the hinges, when you buy these. I used all deck screws on everything. That way it would last longer. PT will definitely, the chemical in it will eat your screws if you don't use actual deck screws. So that's what these are. All but the latches, of course, because they came as one piece. But anyway, they'll last a while, and if not, something easy to replace. But all those braces are zinc coated also. Anyway, like I say, the floor is the biggest thing that, as far as cost, if you wanted to save cost, you could build the same box and then maybe only put 1 or 2 2x4s across the center of it, and then put, instead of putting this wire on the outside, I would put it on the inside, of course, at that point, and you know, have no floor at all. And you wouldn't need any of the floor joists, which that'd be, what, 9 floor joists, I guess, that you wouldn't need. The 8-foot 2x6x8s, you'd get rid of 9 of those, and the plywood, all the floor plywood, which is 4 sheets. I did buy a 5th sheet because I used here and there, and then, like I say, 2 additional pieces of 1/2 inch for the back wall, if you decided to make that wire. But wire's not cheap either. But you can weigh your options with that. Like I say, I'll go over the price sheet and let you know how much this costs. Anyway, happy with how it came out. Chickens seem happy. So just want to share it real quick. Hope it helps somebody. Some of the tools I used: square to keep your cuts straight, impact drivers, drill, impact itself, a few bits, sawzall with a wood blade, circular saw, a few other assorted bits and drivers in there, hammer of course, tape, just basic stuff. I was gonna mention, I mentioned you can save a lot of money by not putting the floor in. If you don't use the floor, just make sure you put something down. I've seen people use, some sort of hardware cloth, wire mesh, a chicken wire itself anyway, just so things don't dig in. Sometimes people also put like an L shape coming out from the outside of the pin so things don't dig in. Raccoons, coyotes, foxes, all those will dig in if you don't over time eventually. Might not be first night or second night, but eventually they're going to figure it out, and they're going to find their way in the coop. So anyway, just want to make sure I mention that. Just totaled up everything on the chicken coop. Wrote it all down on a piece of paper. I'll throw a picture of that in at the end too, in case you are going to build something like this. You got a kind of a shopping list to go by. But this is all current prices. This is Central Florida, middle of 2022, so I know it changes pretty quickly right now. But anyway, it'll give you a really close estimate on what it'll be to build this coop. And of course you can, edit it, like I say, if you don't want the floor or whatnot, you can definitely cut some money there. But anyway, here we go. All right, gonna run through this as quick as I can. Of course, so cost all your wood, your 2x6s are your frame for your deck to be put on. All the 2x4 wood is your framing on the front and the back of the coop, along with the door. Probably could get away with all 8-footers, but I did get some 10s, but I don't think I actually needed that length. But anyway, the plywood, of course, the thicker plywood, 3/4, is the floor, and then the 1/2 inch is on the back wall. Those prices are similar because I bought them from 2 different stores, because the 1/2 inch stuff I bought more local at a smaller store, so it was almost as expensive as the 3/4. But anyway, cattle panels, of course, they make up the main body. You'll need 4 of those, of course. Chicken wire to cover the whole thing, to predator proof it. I got the 6-foot tall. That way I only had to go over 3 times instead of getting, like a 36 or 48. I got the 72, like I say, where I only had to go over 3 times, and that gives me, just over a foot of overlap also. Cage wire, which made up the door, wire on the door, and then also on the left and right side above the plywood. That's the cage wire. Assorted deck screws, I just put about $50 in there. I know I bought at least 5 boxes, and there were 10 or 11 boxes, and just different sizes. I already had some, but I'd say roughly you're going to spend that. That's all for 3-inch on the framing, and I think I got 1.5 or 1.75 for some of the floor decking I used, and putting the plywood down. Hog rings for connecting each panel, 12.5 gauge. Poultry staples for, of course, all the poultry wire and the cage wire, tacking that down. The long fence staples for connecting the panels to the frame. Of course, all the door hinges, latches, braces, handles, all that made up the door. And then the tarp for the top, which was the heavy duty variety. They have, light, medium, and heavy, and then even like an extreme, like canvas. That was a lot more for the canvas. But anyway, all totaled up, came out to be about $1,082 with tax. That's extremely close. I rounded those numbers, of course, a little bit. adding that up, but it's going to be extremely close to the total cost. I'm happy with how everything came out, so I don't think I would really change a whole lot. I would have bought, of course, that plywood, that 1/2 inch at the same store, and maybe gotten 3/2 and only 4 of the 3/4 if I had to do that again. But other than that, it turned out good. If you don't want the floor, you're going to save, of course, a lot on the decking and the 2x6s, all the joists. You're still going to need the outside framework, but for the joist, you're not going to have that. So that's what, you'd only need 8 of those instead of 10. So that'd save you, almost $80 or $10.68 a piece. And not to mention the all the 3/4 inch plywood you could save as well. You would just need a little bit extra of the 1/2 inch for the front, but that's going to save you a considerable amount, almost $400, almost. But anyway, hope that helps. Give you some options. Came out good.